Death by noise.
Through dark veil, space, time.
Yes, I like it.
This is Warp Chatter!
Sweet mother of the abyss!
There's a great deal of work to do.
All right. Welcome to the Warp Chatter podcast, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Once again,
we promote the kids.
We've got kids of all ages. We don't know how old they are. Some are young, some are old, some are young at
Between
heart.
25 and 55 years.
That's right.
The prime age of children, I guess.
Of course. At least male children.
There are some in their teens. That counts. This is the Warp Chatter podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to talking about the Horus Heresy Legion's digital card game, Horus Heresy lore, Warhammer 40,000, everything that encompasses. And I'm your host, Scuff D. With me today, we have got a player who was previously on, we were just talking, back in July as part of Team Germany for the World Cup team, Constatin Valdor.
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hello. And joining us, as always, is the Crab co-host, Axel Manning.
Howdy, ho.
All right. And our topics today, we've got Constatin Valdor on, who is a prolific, infamous, renowned across the world in the cosmos and the Eye of Terror studios as a Legio Custodes player. We're not doing the Legio Custodes faction focus. However, with the recent balance patch that did come out last week, it focused heavily enough on the Custodes, and we had some schedule workarounds, and were able to record a little bit earlier on the weekend to get Valdor on to give his thoughts on the balance patch. So we're going to be talking about the balance patch at length, but before we get to that, let's do some player introductions. Valdor, last time you were on was about 7 months ago, right? So, I mean, for those who didn't catch that episode, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I consider myself, I think I can say that a veteran Custodes player. I was part of Team Germany during the last World Cup. We did pretty well, ended up on 4th spot. And, well, I was playing Custodes and lately a bit Scoria, just to, keep playing the game. But I lost some focus on the Custodes because they fell behind quite a lot. Mm-hmm. But with the recent changes, we will have to see. They're good, but there's some downsides too.
Yeah, right. And I think we'll get to talking about them, the changes, as well as maybe what is still lacking when we get to the balance patch. What was it that got you into Legions? Was it the Custodes themselves, or were you playing before that?
I was playing before that. I mean, I came in during the expansions when the Raven Guard and the Iron Hands entered. I think it was the Istvan 5 expansion, I'm not sure.
Yep.
And I got into the game because I'm a huge Warhammer fan, and it just popped up on my mobile. It was suggested you might like this game, and I was, maybe try it out. And I did, and I liked it at that point. Uh-huh. I mean, I had very few cards. It took me almost a week to get a second Warlord. I had no idea how to get another Warlord, until fortunately some popped up. And then after a few months, the Custodes entered the game, and I became a fan ever since.
All right. Cool. Do you play Custodes on tabletop, or do you play tabletop at all?
I do have some Custodes for tabletop, but I rarely get into playing because of time issues. But I like painting them. I like reading the books. I bought the recent Custodes Codex. And I just like the lore and the stories about them. I would like to play a bit more on tabletop, but sadly enough, time is, as I said, the issue.
Yeah, I got a question on tabletop. Do you own the Grav tank?
The Caladius?
The one that costs way too fucking much. Or am I thinking of their dropship that's like $600?
Nah, I don't have the dropship. I have one Caladius Annihilator, and it looks
all I know
awesome.
Is they have. Oh yeah, they're all great. All I know is there's one vehicle they have that costs a lot of money, and I can't remember its name.
The Annihilator. I think you mean the dropship. But
yeah, they have a couple dropships, but I think all the prices are... Okay, I just checked it. For the folks at home, in Canadian dollars, which you may think is Monopoly, but it has some value, I swear, is $600 for both their gunship and their dropship.
That's a second, and I can look it up for you, our European listeners in Euro. You don't mean the Caladius Craft. The Ares gunship. You mean that?
Yeah. The gunship and the dropship have the same price. So yeah.
Yeah, it's 375 euros.
Yeah.
That's still like a whole army. That's basically about $500. I mean,
yeah, it's 470. So for the US viewers, that's each vehicle. You want a dropship and a gunship? That's almost $1,000.
Wow. I mean, there's been some recent price spikes, or I wouldn't say price spikes. I think recently GW put out an article that they're going to be doing the typical raise their prices, and there's been a lot of responses across the community from what I've seen. I mean, in general, it's a classic move. It's what they do, but I think the last several years, Games Workshop and their kits and their selling strategy has really been bad. It's not been customer friendly at all, and I think we're at a tipping point. And I mean, I don't play the tabletop anymore. The last time I bought models was in 2014, and then kind of the same thing. I didn't have time to play, and now where I live, I don't really have anybody to play with, so if I get a model, I would just be getting the model for myself or to paint for myself, and I want to, but then every time I go to do it or really look at it, then I look at the price, and it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I think a lot of people are getting to that point with the price point in Games Workshop. The last several boxes, especially where you're paying $200, you're getting 18 models or 13 models, and not all the models are ones that you want. Or recently, like this box that's going to be coming up with the new Eldar sculpts, you're getting 8 models for the Eldar and 8 models for Chaos that you're like, okay, well, I mean, that's it for $200, but they're new Eldar models, so if you really want the new stuff, it's such a predatory sales.
Oh, you forgot the stinker of that too. The Chaos models aren't new.
No,
the pre-existing
models.
The
Chaos models are archaic. You know, well, I can't say archaic. They've already been done. So the only thing that you're getting new in that box is the Eldar models, and
I thought the Chaos models are new too.
No, there's like one Reaper, I think, in there that's new, a heavy support. Okay. But everything else in there is old. So you're.
I mean, I'm sorry. The strategy was to promote the boxes with one new character model for each side, and if you only want to have that, to buy about 150 euros over here in Europe, and you get a bunch of stuff you actually don't want, or you probably already have, that doesn't work out, especially for younger people.
Absolutely. Or even when you're like, money. You don't even get a full army. You're getting half an army if you want to start. So it's not even a great start playing box. You know, the old battle boxes that I was used to. Yes, you would get 50-50, but you got enough units where it was a sizable, whether it was the Orcs and Space Marines, or the Chaos and the Dark Eldar, or the Dark Angels, or the old Eldar, and I think it was Chaos or Tyranids. I mean, you would get at least 50, 60 models. The Indominus box, which I actually bought 2 years ago, was a great buy, and it was. So I guess I correct myself. I did buy models back in 2018. I forgot because I haven't done anything with them except put them together. But I mean, that was the last good buy because it was great models, a lot of great models, plus a rule book for a good price. And then everything after that has been that's it. I feel like you're giving me stuff that I don't want. You're charging me more, And
I was gonna say, the previous boxes also had more models for the same price.
Yes.
So, everything about this is bad.
Yes. It would be one thing if you were paying, $200 for 10 models, and now you're paying $200 for 18, but I mean, you used to get, 40 models, and now you're getting half of that.
Exactly one box ago, there was 25 models, so we just lost 9. I think that's the math.
Yeah.
For the same price.
Yeah.
You're comparing it to the new Warpfire box, aren't you?
I'm comparing
Eldar and Dark.
No, I'm comparing to the one back in December. That was the Custodes one.
It was like Custodes and Gene Stealers.
Okay. But I think there's a difference if there's some kind of mass army involved, like or Gene Stealers, or if there's some high quality like Custodes or Space Marines.
But I think even the one before that had the same amount. I think Hexfire had the same amount.
Yeah, because that was a beef I had with that box. And Faith and Fury was the Sisters of Silence and the Dark Eldar. And perfect armies where they're kind of low costed. You could squeeze in quite some models. But instead they gave you a tank and they gave you some high cost Eldar models. So you didn't get a whole lot. I think you got like 24 models or something in that box. And really, if you were a Sisters, or for me, I was like, hey, I would like to start a Sisters army. There was, 6 models in that box that I wanted. I like Dark Eldar models and stuff too, but it was really just the character, the new sculpt for the Witch. It wasn't necessarily the Lilith character, but it was like the Witch leader.
You could run it as a Lilith character.
You could, yeah, but I mean,
it's a little effort.
It was just, it was smaller. It I don't know. Like, I mean, in general, we're kind of getting away from the card game here, but it's 40K. It's a Games Workshop thing, and I think there's still going to be people who will buy because some people are really just it's their drug. But I think a lot of people that were buying when the pandemic started because they could, the hobby was interesting. Maybe they were getting back into the hobby. They didn't have anything else to do. Like, no. It seems like, I don't, from what I've seen and what I've heard, I don't expect them to stick around. And I think that's going to bite Games Workshop in the rear. We might not see it until the end of this year when they get their third quarter, budget rolls in and they find out that sales have not been going the way they're going. But I mean, if you take a look at what they've been doing for the last couple of years, the trend is there, and this isn't the first time Games Workshop has gone through this cycle. So we hope, or at least I hope, that give a year or two, they will have to adjust their business, and that then it will kind of shift back to a customer, player-friendly model because the last few years have not been, and that's
they already did that.
They did that before.
They already did it once. I mean, I remember a time where the White Dwarf magazine was a weekly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you had to buy 4 of those and some additional magazines.
I love the optimism.
Like the whole White Dwarf, and it was like $25. And now you get at least one solid monthly magazine for around $10, and it contains everything. So that was a step in the right direction again.
Yeah.
And on top of that, at the time,
just need a knock on the head.
I think White Dwarf at the time too, it was like really just a catalog. Like a lot of the substance of what used to be in the White Dwarf, they had kind of gotten rid of the battle reports, the conversions, the fluff, the things that I was interested in getting White Dwarf. And I think when they were like, well, we need to change, this isn't working, people aren't buying, and they made that change. And so, I mean, it takes hitting them in the bottom line for them to pay attention. And I think they're going to take a bottom line hit and hopefully make the changes. Because, like I said, it hasn't been the first time, and I don't expect to see Games Workshop go defunct and we'll never see Space Marines again. That's certainly not what I'm talking about. I just think that
far too popular.
Yeah. I just think that we are at a point where I can see it on the horizon, and if people are just willing to deal with and not support, and I guess I'm kind of getting back around to like why I haven't bought any models. They're just too expensive, and I can't cater to that.
Mm-hmm. Fair point.
So I think we got there asking about if you played tabletop. I don't. That was kind of a long. I mean, it was unexpected.
Like hours ago.
Yeah, hey, do you play tabletop? Because it's expensive, but it's. I think that's
tabletop. How do you afford it?
That's a conversation I guarantee you many people have had with their friends. Whether or even people like. You can have that conversation with anybody who's played 40K or Warhammer, or is still playing for 40K Warhammer. Like the conversation you might have with somebody who is outside the hobby looking in would be completely different. Because they're like, how do you spend that much money on this stuff? Like, why?
To be fair, you spend that money once. You buy the stuff you want, and then you have it. If you have some different hobbies where you have to give money continuously, like skiing in the mountains or something like that, you have those expensive consistently.
Yeah.
I guess that there might be something to it.
That was there's that, or like the card games. Like when I transitioned from playing a ton of card games all the time to, hey, I'm going to play a 40K game, I'm going to buy an army. That was my immediate thing. Like I was like, oh, this is way back, 1998, 2000, around that time. I'm like, oh, I'm spending $300 every 3 months. But $300 gets me one army, and that's all I ever have to spend. And now, I mean, the prices have changed, but it's roughly the same. Like, if you are playing a card game, if you're playing Magic the Gathering or whatever collectible card game, and especially those ones that have blocks where you can never sit on what you've got, basically every 3 months you're paying a set amount of money. And 40K, if you are really serious about the army that you're playing, you spend $500, maybe $600, and you're done. And that's a lifetime purchase, as long as you're happy with what you got.
Let's say at least for some years, until some new stuff comes out.
Until they re-sculpt some things, or they make your characters cross the Rubicon and become Primaris Marines,
Or die.
Or just die.
Or die. It happens. But I used to say, I was like, look, I don't do drugs, I don't gamble, I don't do things that
Man
get
of
me in
Vegas?
trouble. That's true. I didn't. I mean, I could have. I did the slots like once when somebody would come visit, but we don't live in the casinos. Las Vegians don't live in the casinos.
Yeah, that's what they want us to believe.
That's just where we work. But yeah. So I mean, it's a clean hobby. It can be.
That's fair.
That's fair.
It can, yeah.
So are there other games you have played, other card games or anything like that prior to this one, or was this your first card game experience?
Card game experience, it's actually the first. I mean, I was playing Netrunner with a friend.
Okay. The LCG?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was more like a short-lived thing.
Mm.
I mean, we played it sometimes, but not too often because we play lots of actual games on tabletop, and that was just one of them we tried out. I mean, I like it. It's a good game, but something else came up and we played that.
Right. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of something else coming up, I think we should be talking about the balance patch, which I knew we were going to be getting some changes to submissions. I think a lot of people were expecting the balance patch for February to incorporate submission adjustments and obviously some meta answer adjustments is what I think people were saying that they were going to see. And then lo and behold, we got a big portion of that, but we also got a large portion of Custodes buffs. So we're going to kind of run through the whole balance patch notes here. We'll break it out in sections. We'll talk about the factions as each one gets, because I think probably we got Emperor's Children, Raven Guard, Warbears, Iron Hands, Salamanders, World Eaters, Space Wolves, Mechanicum, as well as Legio Custodes. So let's just get into it. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right.
I guess we are.
All right, well, Legio Custodes, I would probably argue one of the biggest changes is to the Warlord Vetriano Shapura. He gets his change from paying 1 to get shield till the end of turn and frontline, and now he has a battle honor, draw a card, and for 1 energy he just gains shield. Pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, far better. I mean, it basically forces your opponent to remove the shield if he wants to deal some damage.
Mm-hmm.
The way it was before, you could just sit it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you shielded up. I don't want to attack you anyway. Just do it.
Yep. Well, and then on top of that, like the battle honor draw on a card, I think for him it allows him to run away from the neutral build. I mean, he loses the front line in general, so protecting neutral cards, like the Helios Mortar Carrier, the Sagittarius Squad, or whatever. Like, that's not an option for him anymore, but he can still be aggressive and defensive at the same time. The Imperial Bureaucrat had its change described from a Relentless to a Resolution draw card. The Imperial Emissary had its ability lowered from 2 to 1, which is pay 1 to draw a card and reduce its cost by 2. Diocletian had his stats changed from a 3/4 to a 4/4, and he is the rally.
+1/1.
Yeah, he's a +1/+1 if you have no over the troops when you play him. Neron Squad had its stats changed from a 4/3 to a 5/3. Velt Squad went from a 3/4 to a 3/5, and its ability, which is give your warlord +2 attack went from 2 cost to 1 cost. Aerois Squad had its stats to increased from a 5-3 to a 5-4. Eriton Squad had its stats increased from a 3-5 to a 4-5. The Emperor's Gift, which is the Rhino, had its stats from a 3-5 to a 3-6, and its ability, which draws a Custodes, is lowered from 2 to 1. Adselton's stats just went from a 5-7 to a 6-8. Tribune, which is a legendary that nobody played, had its stats gone from 7-7, and its Battle Honor, that used to be May Act Again, is gone, and now it has First Strike, Sentinel, Battle Honor, draw Custodes from your deck. Shield of the Imperium is changed its description. This is the 10 cost Land Raider.
This is the one you still won't play.
Still won't play, but I mean, at least maybe in events it could see a drop. As Resolution, draw Custodes from your deck. The Presidium Shield lowered its cost from 4 energy to 2. Only in death, the Telemon Dreadnought that creates, if you destroy a Custodes troop, goes right to your hand now instead of your deck. And Benediction of the Emperor, pretty interesting change here. It changed the description from, instead of healing 5 to all your units, it now gives Survivor 3 to your units, and your next trooper tactic costs 0. So that's the Custodes as a whole. A lot of these are just minor stat buffs, or cost reduce on ability buffs. Not a whole lot of change to what they do.
Benediction or whatever, did it affect all your units?
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
It was healing for 5, but
you never had units on the board.
Yeah, I never saw him heal units, so I didn't even know.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you were healing 1 unit for 1 or 2 points, and then you did whatever you wanted to do afterwards, but giving Survivor free, that's actually pretty good.
That's nice. Because Survivor is always better than heal.
Yeah.
Because it's a 2-step process.
Yep.
And besides that, most of these are just flat stat increases. They were the cards that weren't played much, but there's a good reason for that. You don't like Sentinel. No one likes Sentinel. Almost all of these cards have Sentinel. Except Shield of the Emperor. Shield of the Imperium. They
have Sentinel, and on top of that, they don't do anything to benefit from that. Like, I mean, the First Strike is great. But on low-cost troops, especially like Ep46 Squad, my thing with that, like, it was like, oh, it's stealth with First Strike. Well, yes, you basically threaten your opponent not to put anything on the board, but then what? Like, then you just have a 5-attack troop that you don't do anything with. Like, there's ways to increase their health, or attack with Mortai's Wrath, or if you're set for a combo and you throw down Michaela Coburnus, sure. But it's really still a workaround that your opponent can work around however they choose. So they can stun or give can't attack to your Sentinel troops. Or they could just let that Sentinel troop hit them for 5 and you don't draw any cards for 2 turns. And that's fine if they're in a position to heal or deal with that.
That's true. I mean, you can sit it out. If your opponent loses 1 or 2 cards, that's probably worth taking 5 in the face.
Yeah. There's been several games where I just like, okay, you got a large troop. I can deal with it. You've got 4 cards in hand. That's all you're gonna have, So you kind of deal with that. Like, there are some surprises that some decks can play out, but it's the same surprises. The Lex Ultima really is beneficial if your opponent's got a lot of cards in hand. Early game, unless your opponent is just drawing with a whole bunch of draw cards, which most of those have had their cost changed, so they're not going to be doing that as frequently. That's not going to be as effective for you. And on top of that, that's going to be all your energy, so because it'll be early game. I've played with, and I did a deck list video for Amon Taramakian, I think yesterday or the day before, because I've been playing with him since this patch hit. Because, he's the Custodes counter. He can stun those Custodes troops. I was like, I'll give it a shot. And it was, I got to play some more Custodes troops if I felt like it. Like I said, I played the Dioclete and I played Mortai's Wrath. I've got a couple of the Sedum, I think, Terminators in there. But I could easily go back to doing the combo with a lot more tactics and a lot less troops and play the exact same thing. It doesn't feel like it changes anything with how the Custodes play, number 1. And number 2, aside from Shapura, I think Shapura will play differently. And number 2, it doesn't feel like most of these buffs are attractive enough to even try running them. Like,
Yeah.
So they improved the cards that were never played to slightly better cards that are never played.
that's a perfect summary.
basically
Yeah.
the point. I mean, if you put down here on squad, okay, you threaten your opponent that you will kill any troop he puts down, but playing it on your second turn means you won't be drawing cards at least twice if your opponent counts on doing that, which means 2 cards you don't have, and that's far worse than just having that 5 damage coming to your face.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was like a battle honor, draw a card, your opponent would be forced to do something about it.
I think that's the thing. Like, yeah, if a couple of these either had a few more, whether it's battle honor, draw a card, or a rally effect that gained you a boost for playing the card as well, like just to further hit the footing, because like it's a one turn thing. Okay, cool, you got a high stat card, and then what? Where's the follow up? Where's the real threat? Have you raised the cost of my stuff? Have you lowered my energy from playing anything? I can still play my game, but now half of your game with the Custodes is like figuring out how do I counter my own inability to draw cards. And you've got warlords like Valdor who can use his ability to draw cards, and maybe he's not as impacted as heavily on that. You know, he's drawing troops. You've got Shapura now who has a battle on him to draw troops, so maybe he's not as impacted by those changes. But
Valdor is impacted because you can't draw any tactics.
You're not going to get your
really
tactics. Yeah,
and that's really hard.
Yeah, and especially with those the standard Custodes combo to ends games is very tactic driven. You know, you want Paragon Spear.
You might want to have Auric.
Yes, you want orders from Terra. You know, something to lay it down. And if you don't have those in your hand when you play one of these troops, you might not get it.
Mm-hmm.
Sentinel needs a rework. Like, the gimmick is supposed to be they're the defenders, so they have Sentinel because they just stand on guard. Then maybe something like a reward for guarding, like.
It can't just be a downside, because then you're gimping a faction for really no reason, because these stats look good. But
we were talking in MC about it a few days ago, and we were coming up with the proposal that if you counted card draw as about 1 energy, and you're paying that 1 energy cost by not drawing the later turn, you can basically add 1 to the energy cost of every Custodes, and you get about the average cost of any other Legion card. So if you think like Herculanus Sodality, at the cost of 3, you get the same thing with Thousand Suns or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, you're paying that additional cost every other turn your card stays in the game, but just once. So maybe if Sentinel, I don't know, just works once would probably be too much. I'm not sure about that. But then you pay at least once for it and not continuously. So tactics like stalling your troops with stun it again, and then stun it again, they wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
I guess that makes sense.
I think I've heard some people pitch the idea of Sentinel only counts if you have 2 or more troops on the board. You know, so if you play,
that might work too.
If you play a single Custodes troop that normally has Sentinel, not a problem. You're still going to draw cards. But if you throw down a second troop of any kind, then that Sentinel will prevent you from drawing cards.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times, and I do like the idea of Sentinel only being active while the troop is in like that cooldown phase where it can't do anything. What's a card game term? Is it asleep? I guess.
Yeah, the summoning sickness?
Okay, so I mean that there are little sets above the head when they don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, summoning sickness. Yeah, if the card is suffering from summoning sickness, at the start of your next turn, you just don't draw a card. Makes sense to me, because then when it's actually active, your card draw comes back. But for a turn, you don't get a card draw. So you're playing a troop to not get a card till later. Because really, I'm just throwing things out, because Sentinel as a mechanic is... such a shooting yourself in the foot moment.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
The only mechanic where you shoot yourself in the foot.
It's one of the worst. I mean, as far as mechanics go, Sentinel and Maintenance are at the bottom of the list. Like, they're the only ones that have a negative detriment. Berserk is just above it because you're going to attack with that troop anyway 9 times out of 10. So that doesn't really matter. It just doesn't do anything for you. But Sentinel and Maintenance work actively against you, and not drawing cards sometimes is worse than having 1 or 2 less energy.
I agree, yeah.
You know, especially for a faction that is kind of end game combo heavy. Like, you need those cards, and I'm sure that was their intentional design when they came up with the idea of Sentinel. And at the time, the stats kind of made up for it for quite a bit, but no, they don't. And with these changes, I still don't think they do, because these changes are stat buffs, but they're not speed buffs. And the game has seen a speed boost. Granted, the patch that we got in January really worked to try to adjust some of that with all the cost reduction cards.
Yes, that was one of the better patches they ever did.
Absolutely. I think, you know, if we see... I expect we're going to see an addition to the Custodes in the March balance patch. Some of these might get tweaked a little bit further. Maybe there'll be some additional changes. Typically, from what we've seen last year, that's what, you know, Everguild has done. They do a big patch, and then they do a couple minor tweaks in the months that follow, just to kind of make sure that what they put out there is viable. I think there's some potential here. If none of these cards had Sentinel, they'd be pretty strong. Or if Sentinel was changed, these would still be very strong. And I don't think any of these would be overpowered. None of these have rally effects.
I mean, that's a reasonable approach. Let's buff some stats, let's see what happens, and if they're still not good, let's tweak it here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you overdo it, then you have something like when the Sisters appeared, or when Knights came out, where, oh yeah, that's like better than everything else, and then you have a meta where basically mirrors occur all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, then that's all you're going to get, you know, and that's just as bad for the game as having stuff that nobody plays. Or, I mean, it's kind of the extreme thing. Nobody plays all these things because they're playing these 3 things. I think the best you can hope for is a variety of, at least at this point, I mean, there's over 150 warlords. It'd be great to see more than 10. I think if you get 7-ish in the top 50 that are kind of rotated out, I think that's probably the best you can hope for. But as long as those 7-ish...
You won't ever get the game completely balanced.
No. But as long as those 7-ish kind of hit different points and play styles and aren't all doing the same thing, then I'm for that. And I think that's as healthy as you can hope for.
I have an addition to that. At least one of those 7 needs to be Custodes Warlord.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I have
that's
to
a
do
fair
that.
request. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that Custodes work now, people hate that combo, and I can understand it. I mean, you drop Cubernus, you have the spear equipped, and then you bash them down from 20 or maybe even 30 HP with the Paragon Spear and the Orders from Terra combo.
Yep.
And that's basically the Kinha combination with his Speeder Troop in gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. You wait, oh, you're dead.
Yeah.
And I mean, I see some opponents with like 30 HP, and I think at the start of the game, oh, you're in lethal range. Okay. That's annoying and boring. I don't want that. And if Everguild takes that away, I'm fine with it. Just change Paragon Spear, maybe change Orders from Terra. That card is a part of the problem. But then you have to make a true play more viable.
Yes.
Or you have to change some of those tech. I mean, Eternal Vigilance, heal your Warlord for 1 HP for 5. I mean, what is that?
I think at the time it was like, oh, it's like a better servo harness, maybe, but it really isn't. I mean, it's a common.
It better? I mean,
no,
servo harness did the same thing.
Servo harness heals too, but it could randomly heal a troop that didn't need it. You know, that you didn't really care about when going your warlord.
Yeah, but it's twice the amount of a heal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's also in a faction that was a little bit more okay with healing and sticking around. And the Custodes are beefy, but I would say their best. I mean, preternatural reflexes is their better of the two. If somebody's playing Eternal Vigilance, and then I'm like, okay, I mean, you probably got Apotheosis in there too, and a couple, but like that's a wasted card. Like that card's not as necessary as you think.
No, I mean, you waste your if you look at the card pool,
yeah,
and you see, okay, what do I want to play on 5? You have to choose between Artelon Veterans, Eternal Vigilance, Emperor's Gift, Thermalis Support, Vespers on Command. I mean, Vespers on Command is still bad. Emperor's Gift is, I would never play it because it can be Melgatored and the effect is kind of not good. But so basically you have the choice between a 6/5 with Survivor 2 and a 5/6, which gives your warlord +1 attack. Half of those have first strike, so you go for one of these. Or you go to the neutral pool, drop Duke Mortic or something else. Far better options than heal your warlord by 1.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I mean, there's more to be hoped for, I think, with the Custodes to come. So far, first week impressions, and I kind of said a little bit of this when I was doing the Amon video. I mean, he's not playing any differently. I have had fun playing a couple more Custodes than I normally would. Like, hey, that's cool. I don't need to. I could go back to playing a tactic Amon, or if you're playing, well, I'm drawing a blank on their 30 hit point warlord's name. Nassau. Yeah, Nassau. Yeah. If you're playing Nassau, you're definitely doing that. There's definitely no need to throw down troops except for the key, hunting eagles and maybe jet bikes, Cobranus. There might be one more in there that you might need, but you don't necessarily need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you usually go for Termelus support.
Yeah, Termelus isn't bad. But
that's kind of the problem with that balance patch. If you ask me which Custodes troops I like and I play, I'd go for Coburnus, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go for Thracian Jet Bikes, Arthurian Veterans, Termelus support, Hunting Eagles, maybe even the Lentum Knights. And then if you look at the balance patch, well, those troops stayed exactly the same.
Yeah. Yep.
And they still are mostly better than those who were changed.
I haven't played Tribune. I was like, wow, they changed Tribune, and I was like, I'm still not going to play Tribune. Like, it's...
Yeah, I mean, why?
They really just made it more of a bait for hard removal.
Well,
he was before, but now he
was. I think the theory with that was like, oh, he should be a little bit better than the Hunting Eagles and kind of on par with the Sanguinary Guard, but he doesn't have flank. He doesn't have a rally effect. If he had rally, gain ward until your next turn, all right. Now we're talking,
awesome,
like that. Now he feels like a legendary, and I'm willing to go a turn without drawing cards to have a 7/7 first strike on the table. But we don't have that.
If you want if you want to play a legendary on 6 energy, you just go to the Mechanicum pool and play the Forge Master.
Yeah.
Far more durable with the shield, because if you don't use a hard removal, you need to hit him a second time. And then you don't have Sentinel as a downside. I'm not sure about the Ad Sultan squad. That might be good. I don't know. I mean, 6/8 on 6. If you can play it with Drilling Sight on 5, that's something you have to deal with.
It is a beefy stat line, and then on top of that, they do have a decent. It's a costly ability, but their ability's pretty. I mean, they can clear a troop for 4 health and then still hit you for 6.
Yeah, but I still think the ability should cost 3 energy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it that the can act again part is very powerful, but if you look at some other cards that have abilities that cost 1, like Aristide Kell from the Agents of the Sigilite, for 1 energy, you can deal 5 damage and create a seal. Compared to this is ridiculous. And it starts in stealth, so usually it sticks to the board.
Well, yeah, and on top of that, we do have like the other Lehman Russ tank that has a very similar ability for the same cost. Like, I mean, Custodes, if they're going to be better, they should be better by cost reduction. Like, even if it's just by 1, that's the thing. Yeah,
you're shooting yourself in the foot for not that much upside nowadays, and it's kind of sad.
Yeah,
and they're such a cool faction because of their gimmick, not like their gimmick lore-wise.
Yeah,
they're the guard of the Emperor and stuff.
You do feel really fun when you first strike stuff, or when you're just like powing down. Like, these guys are better than Astartes in every way.
Yeah,
I guess it was like hard playing the event when Fierce Onslaught was on the table of getting into the game. I was looking at it and it was, oh my god, I have an 8 energy board clearer.
Yeah,
as often as I want.
It's so good on all their cards, but really you're putting it on Hunting Eagles.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you drop something like Artillon Veterans or Malice support and you face, let's say, what's the turret building warlord for Imperial Fists?
Yes, yeah.
And he built like 5 turrets, and you say, okay,
It's gone.
And then everything's gone. Yeah. And you still have health left to hit his warlord.
Yep.
I mean, that one card is the only way to keep Tribune to his original self, but better. But I would still rather put it on Hunting Eagle because he comes out faster.
Yeah, the flank is
Man.
big.
Tribune done so dirty. Even the character they have on his art got his head bit off. Like, that guy's not doing hot.
Well,
The Tribune card?
Tribune is. I mean,
who's
technically, that was a. There were three Tribunes. It wasn't just one guy.
Yeah.
It was a raid.
The art,
but
the art there is Aquilon.
Yeah, the art that they have on that is Aquilon, who was attached to the word bearers.
And Spargel Tall bit his head clean off.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts because the Custodes murdered like Argel Tall's not his best friend. It was, I think she was a
His
confessor
lady,
for the word bearers.
the lady.
Yeah, I
Mark,
guess you could argue it's a lady, but it's hard to say that with Space Marine. So I'm trying to say that without saying that. Because they
She was
murdered
his
her.
lady friend. It's okay. They weren't lovers. I mean, you know.
No, definitely not. But he got so pissed at the Custodes that when they were told to finally turn on him, he went, "All right," and he just bit off Aquilon's head.
That was the
All
first
right, I
book.
have to reread that.
Yeah, you got to read that. I mean,
First
It was
Heretic it
first
was.
Yep.
yeah, and First Heretic
The art.
was the book where they kind of were like, we need to redo the Custodes, because there was a couple stories. I mean, the Custodes have been in the lore for a very long time. It's like these awesome
Oh yeah.
guys, but there were actually a couple stories in the Horus Heresy short stories where they kind of were getting punked around, or they weren't like, you're like, I don't get, okay, what are they basically like gold armor Space Marines? Like, what's the difference? And the way that was written, and I've heard interviews with some of the authors, and the way that was written by Aaron Dembski-Bowden summed up exactly what they wanted to do with the Custodes, and from there, everybody kind of built on and like basically kind of was like, okay, let's raise up the power. Like these guys, like is the whole thing. Like the Space Marines fight like wolves, the Custodes fight like lions. You know, like these guys are single-handedly, like individually, waging their own war, whereas the Space Marines do it as a unit, or as a pack tactic, basically. Combined. The Custodes don't need that. They don't need to rely on their brothers. And as stories have gone on, you kind of see that like a single Custodes can do 10 times more than what an Astraeus can do. Emperor of Mankind was a great book where,
Awesome book,
and you get to see that where they're actually waging war on the front lines, and they've got they've got their, I forget the name of the title, but it's like their seneschal basically stands next to them and like reloads their spear, gives it back to him, and then you got the one guy who just like goes up and just like clears demons left and right, steps back, grabs his reloaded spear, and continues the fight. And he's waging that fight in like a 360 arc, but that's all he's concerned about, because that's all he needs to be concerned about. That's another great book.
Unfortunately, they forgot to give the memo to the guy who wrote the Beast Arises series.
Yeah. I think that's it.
The memo that Custodes actually are powerful. Oh darn, no, lost that. Oh damn.
Yeah, and I think
I was reading that part with the Elder, and I was like, that does not fit the lore in any way.
I think some of those books were being written at the same time. Yeah. Because
they'll either make Custodes overpowered, or they'll do an Avatar of Cain, where it's, you want to see how cool this guy is? He just killed a dozen of them with his bare hands.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
They had like one of the early stories before the First Heretic. They had that short story with Garrow, and he had he encounters a Astartes. This is like right before he starts to work with Malkador, and the Astartes, the Custodes is like super suspicious of Garrow, and this is when the
Macer
Varen shows up in Terra with a bunch of refugees from Mistvan. He's like, we don't want anything to do with World Eaters. Like we're here to join, and the Custodes is like, I'm going to destroy your ship. I don't trust you. And so the whole character of this guy is he's just super arrogant, and he gets
that was the starting point.
Yeah, and then he gets ambushed and killed by 5 Emperor's children. Goes out cold. Not even he goes fighting. He's just like, whoa, his comm's dead. Oh, he's dead. That's it. And that's not what they wanted to do. I think they realized these guys are going to be in the Siege of Terra.
White Scars?
No, yeah, the White Scars there was actually some traitor White Scars that were on board that.
Yeah, but I think that the part in the book actually states that it was a mistake not to go for the Custodes at first, because he caused tremendous damage. I remember that part of the story, but I think he caused actually a lot of damage while they surprised him.
I don't remember, because I remember the Emperor's Children guys who were actually loyal, like, made it out there. I don't know if he caused a bunch of damage or not. I thought he just died.
I mean, it was one of the short stories.
Yeah,
no.
It was a short story for Kyran.
He went down fighting.
Did he? Well, he should have gone down fighting, but I mean, he
should have been able to kill all of them.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, 5 Marine, because, they're numbered balanced. Like, one of my favorite is the new short story that came out not long ago with the Primaris Marines, where it's like, one just casually killed 100 of them in a moment.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so we have to balance this as Primaris Marines, which Games Workshop is trying to say are better, just flat out than a normal Marine. He can kill 100 of them, but then one loses to 5 EC.
Well, and then on top of that, like, the Custodes are going to be defending Terra. They're defending the Webway. They're fighting against demons. Like, they had to, and they should have, because in lore they're that beef, right? But they had to write some more stories to show that, because otherwise, how are you going to have the 3 or 4 stories where these guys are getting punked fairly easily? I mean, geez. 5 Galvorak. Yeah.
Galvorback. I was making that point the other day.
Yeah.
Where someone was trying to tell me, a Custodes could beat anything in a fight, but at the same time, a Galvorback dies by shooting it. Same time, 5 Galvorback can easily take on any Custodes.
And they did. And so we've got, if we're going to do that, we've got to show, how many more of these are they going to be fighting on Terra? They've got to have some strength.
This is the thing we can't do you can't use numbers to balance anything in 40k. I was arguing this the other day. You can't just put this is worth 10 of this, because no, this is worth what the author wants it to be.
That's worth. And I say that in any time somebody wants to talk about a story or plot writing, or like the classics are like, who would win? I'm like, well, what does the author want to happen?
Who has the better plot armor?
Yeah. Who is writing the story? Like, I mean, Batman versus Captain America. Well, guess who won that fight? I mean, who wrote it?
Sorry, I didn't get which one? Which one?
Batman versus Captain America.
Did he have prep time?
It was 1994. Amalgam Comics.
Batman versus Captain America. You sure?
Yeah, Batman wins. Yeah.
Oh, trust me.
Batman,
this is stuff.
Captain America. Isn't that two different?
It is. Yep. That was the whole point. They did a 4-issue crossover. This is back in the 90s when it was all about cash. And they were going to do Amalgam Comics. They're like, we're going to finally have all your heroes fight all your heroes. And it didn't turn out great, because it was kind of like, that's all it was. And it was really just whoever wanted to write the fight kind of determined who won. It didn't really, it was like, that's not really how it would happen. But
you did choose Batman, who wins against everything for some reason.
That's how it works. That's how these things happen, is who writes the story is going to determine how it goes down. Like, all right, like, I mean, I like Ultramarine. I'm the Ultramarines author, so the Ultramarines they're the protagonists in the story. Of course, they're going to come out on top against overwhelming odds. It's just how they do it.
What's it called? Battle of the Abyss?
Oh, that's terrible.
The Ultramarine and Wordbearer book, where 5 Wordbearers kill like 1,000, not 5 Wordbearers, 5 Ultramarines kill like 1,000 Wordbearers and destroy their mega ship, like, single-handedly.
You know who wrote that book?
Was it a Ultramarine fan? I would assume.
It was.
Who was it?
Ben Counter.
No, of course it was.
It was.
I didn't remember.
Ben Counter. He is. He is one of the worst Black Library authors. I just do not stand him. Dornstash, if you're listening, that was always one of my go-tos as far as why I dislike Ben Counter.
Wasn't he the one who also wrote the Ultramarines Codex?
No, that's
no. Everyone hates
Ultramarines. Matt Ward.
The walls of the Eye of Terror studio are shaking with the mention of Matt Ward.
You can't say his name.
This is heresy of the high
Yes,
soul.
no, that was Matt Ward. Ben Counter sadly also wrote the Soul Drinkers Omnibus, as well as several Imperial Fist stories, but he's just not a good author.
Yeah, he did Galaxy in Flames and Battle for the Abyss.
Yeah. Before we get in, I mean, we're kind of sidetracking a little bit here, but I feel like I have to go on a
We
Ben
haven't
Counter
even touched.
rant.
We haven't even touched most of the balance changes.
We've gone through half of the balance change. There's still another half that we have to get to. But here's how tropey Ben Counter's writing is. Okay, so Battle of the Abyss and Battle of the Abyss basically is a Dungeons and Dragons book where the heroes go on a quest to slay the epic beast, and when you see it and you realize it, you can say, wow, this is so tropey, it's so bad. So the heroes, the various heroes, Space Marine protagonists, meet at a tavern. I'm not joking. They meet at a tavern on a planet where they pseudo get into a fight / save their various party / character classes. The Space Wolf is the Berserker Barbarian. The Thousand Suns is the Mysterious Mage. The World Eaters guy is just your fighter, your edgelord fighter. You've got the Space Marine who's kind of your paladin. And then you've got a couple of other humans that kind of fill in the various roles. And then, on the other side...
Some red shirts.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the other side, you've got the world, the word bearers who get this epic, spaceship.
Can I mention that this book also starts with just a smash cut to the word bearers giving this epic speech to an army, and then the intro. This reads like a session 0.
Yes.
Session 1.
It's so... So that's how it starts, and then it just descends from there even more so, where somehow you have to explain why this strange band of Space Marine misfits have banded together to fight this awesome, powerful ship before it reaches Ultramar. And you know that it never reaches Ultramar because we know what happens. That's fine because we know
Ultramar doesn't get destroyed. Is how we know it doesn't reach Ultramar.
We know that there's a lot that goes on in the heresy.
I think it's actually in the orbit around Macragge.
The ruins.
It does get there, but it's destroyed.
It's destroyed.
They mentioned that a huge amount of resources was poured into that ship. And a few books later, I think it was in Betrayers, Logos. I built 3. Okay.
Yeah. The books never are consistent with that. The Abyss class, but even more Lehman's Wolf brothers, Freaky and Greeky, I think their names are.
Gary, I believe. Gary.
Yeah.
Gary.
They die.
Yeah.
In one of the books, and then the next book they're alive.
They're there.
What? In which book do they die?
The one where they. Yeah, when they're jumping at Magnus at the end of that book, Magnus takes one and crushes its head, dead. And he takes the other and slams it against the wall, and its spine breaks.
Really?
Dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next book, they're walking side by side with Lehman. I'm going, okay, Lehman, why the fuck can you revive the dead?
Well, see, I just chalked that up to really crazy, possessed warp wolves. That's how I chalked it up.
The problem is they describe him the same as his wolf. They never say him by name.
No,
they say a white wolf and a black wolf runs at him.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go back into the wolf store and get some more wolves again.
You know what I think that was? I think they made those books, had the name, and then the next author for the next one went, no, I actually want those wolves alive. So they just put colors and not names.
Could be. Anyways, author rants and Horus Heresy rants. We get there sometimes. We have a portion of time dedicated to that occasionally.
I think you have to recut a lot of this podcast.
There's no leave it in.
It's like, hey, you know what? Listen, we haven't talked about the book of Boba Fett, and we're not going to this week, but we'll get there someday.
This week, it's a 40K podcast.
Before we do, let's try to get to the last half of this balance patch. So. Which it deals mostly with the missions, but a few other things that kind of tie into that. So the Emperor's Children, big change here, which I think is funny because last week we were just talking about how this one change will make things different. Lucius gets 35 health. Chosen Slaanesh, they lower the requirements from 10 to 8, and Fueled by Desire, which is the reward, gives +1 to your Warlord. I don't think the conditions for Chosen Slaanesh are still going to make it attractive, but I know everybody went on a Lucius kick for a couple days, and I'm sure he'll be around for a bit.
Oh, he's still around.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I like.
He's still around.
That's been,
but I think
the thing for years. Yeah, go ahead.
The point is the displaced civilians.
Yes.
I mean, a card that does so much, putting in troops on both sides of the board, and the cost of 0. That is a huge problem. I mean, they changed Lorgo because of that, and I think they have to change that card too. I mean, you can do so much without paying anything.
Concentrated
You
fire.
can ramp
Like,
up,
wow, look at that.
You can ramp up Perturabo's
Whispers?
and what's it called? Virus bomb? No, his virus bomb.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh,
his
yeah.
Whispers too.
With viral bombs, like that just felt like a natural fit in every Iron Warriors deck. It was like, oh, cool. I'll just put these on there. As long as you have a little bit more health than your opponent, that is a board clear.
You do it instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so on, and it doesn't cost you anything. It costs you a card slot, but it doesn't cost you any
exactly.
energy. So you go to where you want to do what you wanted to do anyway, and then you drop that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with concentrated fire on Lucius gaining the extra attacks, like I used to run the Kulth regulars, which would give you 2 units for like 3, but now I get 2 units for 0. Okay, and that's 3 more energy I can spend on another troop, another card, anything else to kind of go with that. So it just makes sense. That's the Emperor's Children.
2 of those changes don't matter.
No, I don't think we're going to see Chosen Slaanesh.
Cheaper. It should be cheaper, but that's still not activatable. Because by the time you burn through, really, your troops are hitting once. In most games, the troops will hit once, maybe twice. Either you've won at that point because you're hitting with a 7 attack twice and dealing 14 damage to their face, or you're trading with another troop.
Well, and they've got to take damage, right? So Sardarion, who has a shield, doesn't trigger this.
Exactly. So you burn through 8 troops to get a buff for the next troops you play. You already won the game at that point.
Yeah, at that point you did.
Yep.
And I mean, there are far more viable options for that. I mean,
exactly.
You drop Rulano early, you drop Michaelis jetbikes, and you just rush your opponent down.
And let's go with what I just said. A troop gets 1-2 hits maybe, if it's not trading. You only get the buff, like the Mark of Chaos, if it takes damage. So if you trade with another troop, no Mark of Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit him in the face, Mark of Chaos, but you've already won at that point.
You've already done your damage at that point. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You don't need it. Like, oh, I got Khorne. Cool. Next turn, if it's alive, I'll get that bonus 3 damage. No, you've already won. Doesn't make sense.
Yep. A Raven Guard. Gareth Erendy, the new warlord, has his ability changed to 2 energy, gives sentence 1 to an enemy this turn, and if it's a troop, deals 1 damage to it, which is good because it actually is useful. Like, his ability before dealt a little bit more damage, but it wasn't very effective if you didn't have cards in your hand to follow up with it. So at least if your opponent's playing troops, you can deal your standard pay 2, deal 2. It just does it in a different way. And it works with the mission.
It works great.
Yep. And Captain Kyran, his rally effect of gaining stealth has been removed. That's it. No other change to it.
It's nice, but it's not enough. They've nerfed one part of the Raven Guard. I guess you could call it a combo, Shadow Killers and such. But it's a part that doesn't matter. Like, it's good, but it's not slowing them down.
No, and the mission is still far more viable than any other mission. I
mean, the mission doesn't...
pretty easily.
Yeah, that's my issue.
The reward...
It's so good.
Giving your opponent sentenced, that stays.
Yeah.
And adds up.
It should just be all...
Warlord.
It should just be sentence 1. Like, that's it. The board gets sentence 1. Because in its current form, not only is it against Everguild's design policy, they keep telling us is the design policy of alternative playstyles. There's nothing alternative about using in factions mechanic.
No, you do what they do anyway.
Exactly. Because it's like, alternative... It would be like Ultramarines were like, activate courage. That's their gimmick.
Yeah, I'd be fine if it was a flat, enemy's board is sentence 2. The thing with this one, compared to other missions, I mean, obviously the longer it plays other missions, you're like, I get more out of it, I get more units, or I get more tactics, or more survivor, whatever the case may be. But this one specifically becomes a ticking time bomb. Like, every turn that we go, you're closer to death. Like, your opponent, like, I'm sentence 1, I'm sentence 2, I'm sentence 3. If you haven't killed me by the time my warlord is sentence 3, then I can't survive sentence 4. I mean, whereas you could respond to some of the other, okay, your stuff has got +2/+2, or, all right, you're putting out a troop every turn, or, okay, you're drawing, like, that's not something that is going to end the game by itself. Whereas that reward is very strong. So I think if they were to adjust the reward, and I don't think, I mean, to be fair, I don't think the mission itself is why the Raven Guard are doing so well. I think they've got
they have a lot of aspects.
They've got a lot of stuff that are going for them, but that is definitely one where, like, oh, if I hit the mission and I haven't played Deliverance yet, or I can duck out and fade, like, you're not going to be a happy camper next turn.
No, not at all.
Lorgar, speaking of whispers and
God,
and
why they do this?
This one kind of goes into that displaced civilian. So his whispers once again has been changed. They lowered the cost to 16, but now the cost reduction is -2 for each demon in play, as opposed to what it used to be. So, it used to be 5 demons and you had a 0 cost whisper. Now you need 6 demons to get a 4 cost whisper.
Here's the thing about this. I do agree that his whispers are strong, but what else did Lorgar have? They killed him without giving him something. Like, his normal form you need a reason to be able to play normal, because there's none. Yeah, he had a 52% win rate. That was before this. They shot him.
Yeah, I think.
What's he gonna do?
If the whispers would be at 14, that might.
I would like that. I would like that simply because I can play it with 2 demons on board.
Yeah, you can still get a 2 cost reduction. Like, you can still play it super cheap, but it's also still playable late game, where, like, I mean, you have to play 3 demons to have it cost 10.
Late game, because that's not possible.
Yeah.
You've already won at that point, because your demon host troops count.
You won, or you're not in a good spot. Like, that's one of the other.
You've won or you've lost at that point.
And
his normal form still has no reason to play it.
Yeah.
I'm angry because I like the word bearers a lot.
Now, Chosen of the Gods.
He was a bad primer before he got transfigured.
Yeah. Chosen of the Gods also had its requirements lowered to 4. That's all. There's no other change to that.
You're still not playing it, and if you do, you shoot yourself in the foot with what's that term? Maintenance.
Friendly troop destroys another friendly troop 4 times.
Yeah.
Which
barely will do it with Ashen Circle, maybe once, maybe twice.
But then that's the issue. You're winning and they're ahead. And really, you're only playing missions if you're not the Primarch in most cases, because you're gimping yourself with a card, especially as the word bearers. Lorgar needs that card. Without it, the reward of this card kills your energy, because maintenance as a resolution put in play a demon. You're not using your seducers, because it's not coming in with fast, so it's just a 6/4. Most demons aren't great. Ravengers, I guess, are like really good to get out of this, but everything else is meh.
Mm-hmm.
You're just hurting yourself because when your turn rolls around, maintenance kicks in.
Yep.
So you get a reward to play behind curve. Cool.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Another change here was the Iron Hands. Sons of Medusa had its lower requirement from 8 to 6, which is actually better. Obviously, I mean, less is better. Yeah. Master Mechanisms had it's totally changed to your warlord now gains, your vehicles cost 3 less. And this makes a lot more sense because
Cardozo loves this.
The reward before was your Iron Warriors troops gained Survivor 3, or was your startings. I think it was specifically not your vehicles. So you're playing vehicles to get a reward, not for your vehicles.
I thought it was for vehicles.
I don't think it was. I'm trying to remember because I remember.
I'll pull it up just in case.
Take a look at it.
I don't remember.
I did the stream and I remember 8 was too high. 6 feels good because I've done it. I've done the mission. You have to build your deck to do it, to do the mission. Cardosia can make the mission fun, but the reward was not worth it. But if your reward is getting your vehicles cost 3 less, that's pretty decent. If you're throwing down some of their high cost vehicles, or with Cardosia, you've made 3 or 4 high cost vehicles through the course of the game, and now you can drop them cheaper. That's pretty nice.
It was resolution. Give Survivor 1 to your vehicles.
Okay, just to your vehicles, not even to your warlord.
Yeah, just vehicles. Just vehicles gain Survivor 1.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was, I guess, all right, but most of the vehicles that are threat are getting tacticked.
Yeah.
This is nice. I like this version.
This makes it possible. I don't think you're going to see this dominate. You're definitely not going to see this in top 50. But if you want to play Iron Hands mission, you can, and you can actually get a reward out of it, I think.
Yeah, but still, I mean, damage vehicles 6 times or deal damage with a vehicle 6 times. That often means 5 or 6 cards that get killed or kill something else. That's a lot.
Well, if they
at
have
least this counts for hitting the warlord.
if they have abilities that deal damage, or if you play heavy weaponry, that damage that they deal counts towards this. So if you have 2 vehicles on the board, or 3 vehicles on the board, you play heavy weaponry, you lower your cost by 2 or 3, and then you attack with those vehicles, and now you have a mission.
Well, that sounds reasonable then.
Yeah, I mean, you have to build your deck that way, but it can be done.
Yeah, but that was kind of the point of the missions.
Right, exactly.
Build your deck to fulfill the mission.
Yeah, make something that is a variant that you probably wouldn't be the go-to, but if you want to build a variant, here's a tool to make it a little bit more attractive.
Yeah, I like that in some regards. Others didn't get that treatment.
No.
Ultra and Vanguard.
Namus Raitan for the Salamanders no longer gets +1 attack when he plays a teaching. He still gets frontline, which is good, but those late game where he can pump out and get his attack up to 3 or 4 and slam into you instead of the frontline, those days are gone.
I'm still not sure if that was a nerf or if I'm doing the almost injustice here, because Mount Defa is so strong, but I was reading this and I was like, yeah, and where's the nerf? I mean, the problem is that he can have frontline. And hide those troops behind him.
Yep.
Honestly, I think they should have got rid of the front line, but kept the damage.
Far better.
I like the front line with him. I mean, I get it. I get the game problem. Yeah, the game problem is huge for the Salamanders, especially because that they got sacrifice abilities coming out or whatever like that. But that's what they were vulnerable to. That he does what you want Nemetor to do.
I mean, you usually need 2 hits to kill a Salamander's troop anyway, because most of those who are played have Survivor. But now you need specific cards that can circumvent the Warlord too.
Yeah.
Which basically means those troops will stay.
Yep.
And then the next turn you get hit by maybe Roshan's squad or Antatar's squad kills something, and with Benevolence all the stuff happens again.
And then a wonderful resilience, or they get that Deathfire and they load them back up again. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean
Deathfire, you get 3 cards. I mean, let's face this card. You pay 5 energy, you draw 3 cards for 5 energy, and you reduce the cost of each one by 2. No other card in the game does anything similar.
No. Which is interesting too, because the way that works specifically takes it out of your pool for resilience, or even for Father Decay. Like they're not in your graveyard anymore. Like they are specifically back in your hand, which is interesting. And I'm sure they did that for that reason, so that you can't resilience.
Play twice.
Yeah, exactly what you just did. But I mean. Like it's a very strong card. I think it's great. Even if you reduce their cost by 1, if you're paying 5, you're getting 3 Astartes back and reduce them by 1. That would be good.
That would be okay.
It would still be good, especially if you've got somebody who can either drop frontline or you're just dropping them on your next turn. Like you might be able to deal with 1 of them, but you can't deal with 3 of them, especially if some of them are 3/3s or 4 health. Depends on what they are.
Yeah, I mean, late game you can refill your hand. You basically have a deck size of 36.
Yep.
And some other decks might run out of steam at that point, but you just play this and you have a full hand. You can play most of the time in the same turn because the cards are at a discount.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if maybe the nerf to Nomus was okay, but then there needs to be a change to Mount Deathfire.
I think that's fair.
At least either make it 6 cost or 7, or reduce the discount to 1.
Or as an alternative, I would keep the discount, keep the cost, but make it 2 units instead of 3.
That's okay too, I guess.
Yeah. World Eaters had their mission changed. Chosen of Khorne, the requirement goes from 12 to 9.
Still won't play it.
I've got a couple people who've made it their mission to play this mission continuously. They've made it happen. They finally got it triggered. They never got it triggered with the 12, or they got it triggered like once with the 12, and they lost the game. And they got it to happen. They're like, and it still didn't matter. Like they still didn't. Like at this point, I mean, you lowered it by 3. That's 3 pings. But in a game with the World Eaters, you don't That's just 3 health, and 3 health comes very easily with tactics and fast troops.
At that point, the game is already over.
Yeah.
We're playing World Eaters. The game lasts until 5 energy, and then it's over.
Yep, exactly. Like, you have to go out of your way to do this, and it's just, the reward, it's very strong, but there's no need for it. Space Wolves, Sons of Fenris, their requirement got lowered from 10 to 8, and I think kind of the same with regards to this, where if you get it, and it still was, if you get it, the game's over. I still think it's if you get it, the game's over.
100%.
I don't know if this does anything, and I think it's a great reward. Warlords got pack. Your stuff is getting +1 attack for everything that attacks. They're pumping each other up. But I don't see it making decks different for the Wolves. I don't see, Oathor Weird Makes or Bullvise being done differently, which is a shame because I'd like to see those guys.
You still hit face.
Yeah.
It's like with the Raven Guard, you just do what you wanted to do anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
For
For the Mechanicum...
It was like...
Oh, go ahead.
It was like use tactics or something, but there's not much really viable in the Space Wolves pool. They just have their thing. Hit your opponent as often as you can. I don't know how to change the mission that it would really provide another playstyle, but difficult to see. Yeah,
that would be hard. Maybe I wouldn't say buff the health. Maybe buff the health of your troops by X, because they have several tactics that do that. They also have several units that do that. They have 2 warlords specifically that do that are not Russ. If they did that, that could be something where then it would be, great. You're not buffing their attack until you get this mission triggered, and then Pack is going to make it happen, right? But if you're buffing their health, I don't know. That's just an idea off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I think that would require a bit of a rework of most of the Legion cards to make that viable then.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think some of them need it. The Space Wolves are still... Wolves, and now that the Custodes have seen their buff, the Space Wolves are the oldest unbuffed faction.
Here's the thing with buffing them, though. I think they need a rework over just here's some stat increases, because if you don't, the Lehman Russ who relies on getting the cards in his hand to just end the game early or completely lose horribly, he's a big-ass gamble, will just get easier.
Yeah.
I think the entire playstyle needs a change.
I wouldn't change any of the cards that Russ uses, because he uses about the same 10. I would change the ability for Giger and Bullvi, for sure. I'd honestly lower the cost for Bullvi's ability, and I would change Giger's ability somehow. I don't know how, but I'd change it.
They also need to
maybe lose the Berserk.
Maybe that would be nice. I think maybe a way to give himself
he needs something more.
Yeah, he should just be another aggro version, because it's how they work. I don't know why he shoots compared to the rest of them when they have Pack as a mechanic. Unless Pack... I almost just said the word Pack should trigger on ability use, but forgot about Long Fang. The one would act again.
Right.
Can't do that.
No, I think with Giger, maybe.
You can change Long Fang, so...
I'd have him lose... I want to say lose the Berserk. Yeah. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but I'm thinking if he gained an attack for every Astartes you played that turn, till end of turn, but then you're still going to slam face at them, and that's not much different either,
Nope.
So
that faction does have very little playable cards that cost a lot too. Those need to be changed.
Yeah.
They have the worst Mortat in the game.
I think we'll see. Yeah, I think we'll see something for them at some point before the summer. I don't know what it's going to be. It doesn't have to be a huge rework, because Ward is across the card pool. It's not just Space Wolfie.
They really need to take a look at their 10 energy drops. Those are I'd say it's almost a meme. Oh, let's put a card into the game that does nothing. Corpse Run, it sounds good, but it's there and then you die. It has not. It doesn't have frontline to prevent anything, and the ability is awesome, but at that point the game's over, and that counts for every other 10 drop.
Yep. Yeah, in an event deck, it could
Sometimes.
be sometimes worthwhile because removal is so hard, but that shouldn't be what they build legendaries around, at least. I mean, you want to have like one or two like commons or rares that are really better for events, sure. But a legendary should be able to have a place in a standard deck.
Yeah, it should. Even if it's a 10-drop.
Mm-hmm.
Then it should be some kind of finisher. I mean, 10-drop, Corpse 1, and get rid of everything, just give the troop fast. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's piece of cake. Like, why won't they do it?
That's
too much?
Vengeful Spirit 2 turns later. I guess that would be okay.
Yeah. Scoria had his Xanathite Abiant changed to deal 4 damage instead of 5. I think that's fair.
Better that way.
Yep.
Far
Yep.
better.
Yep.
They needed to up his damage or his HP, not both. It's good to see one down.
Yeah, and I mean, you basically were dealing 5 damage for 3 points of energy, not 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's still good. You kind of deal like 4 damage for 3 energy under certain conditions, but 5, that was far too much.
Yeah, especially in some matches where it's like, oh, you've got a bunch of 1 health stuff. I know what I'm getting rid of. Like, I liked it. I still think him having 40 health, that's great. He can still pump out the hits, but that's about 3 or 4 turns of extra pings, which is about 3 or 4 damage minimum that he could do in a game, and that sometimes is enough to kind of tilt the favor. Or, at the very least, if you've got multiple units on the board, he can't get rid of all of them. He might get rid of 2 of them, but he can't get rid of 5 of them.
Yeah.
That's assuming that they don't like ping the warlord.
Of course.
Also, we finally got that change that they were talking about with the missions being removed from the Crucial Choice and Kaiser Lane selections, and the long-awaited change to the Imperial Army barricades. Those are now those have defected. They've become traitorous. Those barricades. And they're now Iron Warriors.
Loyal to no one.
Yeah, fucking finally. The game will be so
I've asked.
Yes.
I've asked so often. I think I actually approached Mr. Evergill during the Q&A and asked why this was.
Yeah, it's one of those long overdue changes. So I think that's good. I mean, as far as that card goes, as far as the balance patch, I mean, if we have to give a score of 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, how would you guys score this?
1
The whole
purely
patch,
on the
you
Crucial Choice change. No. Fuck. It didn't do enough to Custodes. Like, I can't give it too low because everything done here was good, but it's not enough. So it's leaving me disappointed. 5 out of 7. I don't know. I'll give it a 6. Balls in your court, Val.
We're going from 0 to 10, with 10 being the best.
Yeah.
Okay, let's establish some standard. I'd say the balance patch to drilling sites, supply lines, and so on, that was a straight up 10.
Yeah.
That did everything right.
Yeah.
And considering this, I mean, they did buff the Custodes faction a lot, but they buffed the wrong cards, so there's no new playstyle to that. And that was the bunch of the patch, basically. So I consider that a bit more. And the rest, I think it was done nicely. So all of the other stats are okay, but they weren't doing enough. So at school, I would give that a C. So I probably go with 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 too. Nice intentions, but could be done better.
Yeah, like, I can't
I
say
agree with
they
Max
didn't.
there.
Yeah, they didn't do anything bad. All these changes are arguably good, but it's not enough.
Yeah, I settle with 7. 7 is okay.
All right, then I'm 6. You're 7. All right,
I'm gonna
blow us out of the water. Go straight 10.
No, you know what? No, I'm actually going to go the opposite end. As far as a patch goes, I felt like Custodes, yes, you're right. I mean, we got buffs. They buffed the wrong things. As far as it feels like they missed the mark. I feel like they missed the mark with almost all of these changes. And we have a long list of cards. Not just the Custodes cards, but we have a long list of cards. And there's only about 3 changes in there where it feels like this is what people wanted, or this is a good change for the game. There are some changes in here which are just not smart or miss the point completely when it comes to Raven Guard, when it comes to Lucius, when it comes to the
Almost.
Word Bearers, Namus Raitan. The missions, the missions don't do enough, and the changes aren't going to change the missions enough. As a balance patch goes, especially with the monthly balance patch, I just feel like this either missed the mark or didn't do enough. And I understand that the Custodes got a patch, but when I play the Custodes and I don't feel it, the biggest thing I feel is Only in Death gives me a Telemon in my hand. I got to give this a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10?
This is not a fail, but this certainly missed the mark as far as a balance patch. Aside from the exception for the Xanathite Abiant, and maybe Only in Death and Shipra. That's it.
Yeah, listening to you now, Scuff, I gotta revise my word. I'd go down to 6 too, because of the change to Nomus was basically nothing. And I mean, people will disagree, and that's okay, but I think that was not the problem, and they didn't see the problem with Mount Deathfire. They completely missed that, I'd say. So I guess 7 is a bit too high, but 6, pretty good intentions.
All right. Giving it 6s for good intentions. That's fair. I'm gonna keep my 4, but I mean.
By the way, if you want to talk to Mr. Everguild, please make them change the Caladius Annihilated to a rally. Deal maybe 4 damage once or 2 times 2 damage. That card is completely useless.
Yeah,
and it's a legendary.
Yeah, I had it in my deck for the old Desperate Defense builds. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's get silly for Desperate Defense Custodes. But there's no reason to play it. It is so slow and clunky, and it's got Sentinel to boot. If you're better off playing the Telemon Dreadnoughts than you are playing the legendary card for sure.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Custodes have one rally effect, and that's buff the Dark Legion squad, which is okay. That's
true, but right, Dark Legion's the only one that's got a rally effect.
Yeah, that you can't forget. And if the Annihilator has something like, what's the Emperor's Children tank for 8 energy that casually kills something and has frontline?
Yeah, and that's a common, right?
To that, I don't know.
Hammer of Justice, I think, is a rare.
Is it at 8 energy? Yeah, it's at 8 energy, which means in Emperor's Children you probably can play it at 7 or 6.
Yep.
You put in play a 7/8 with frontline, and you kill something with 4 attack or less. Combined to the legendary in the Custodes pool, which comes into the game and is there. There's nothing.
No.
You can get rid of the ability, the active ability, just give it rally, deal, let's say 2 times 2 damage. But you have to aim. You can do it at the point where you want it to happen.
The only thing I've seen it work for once was when somebody gave it can attack, and he's like, all right, I'll just hit you for 8. Like, that's it. Like, if it still has use in that regard, I guess. But
that's very specific.
It's very specific, and at that point, I feel like, you still made a mistake playing with that card.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Well,
Aquilon Terminators too. Compared to, there's a Blood Angels card.
Yes,
similar.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't change that.
Yeah, I like the Aquilon Terminators. Plus, they've got that purple going on.
Yeah, but the ability is, I don't know, weirdly underpowered, I'd say, for an 8 drop.
Oh well, compared to the Crimson, I forget, was it Crimson Bodyguard or Crimson Sentinel?
Crimson Paladins.
Crimson Paladins, yes, that's what it is.
It's basically the same card. Crimson Paladins has 8 HP instead of 9.
Mm-hmm.
But it has the Requiem, and it deals 3 damage to the enemy warlord
when anything
regardless
is
of the unit that is attacked. Yeah,
exactly.
And it has the Requiem.
Exactly.
And doesn't have Sentinel, so I don't really get the point why this is so much worse.
Yeah. Well, it was two expansions earlier. That's where it was. It's just a matter of time.
Power creep hasn't arrived yet.
No, I think, like I said, I think maybe next month when we get the balance patch, we might see some touch-ups. We might see some redemption. This isn't by far, this isn't the worst patch. This isn't a terrible balance patch. This certainly is a patch that worked to make some things different, make some things trying to make them playable. hits people different ways. But overall, I think, I don't think it's a complete picture. I definitely think we've got other missions that we're going to see patched, whether that's buffed. I mean, we didn't see anything with the Imperial Fists or the Death Guard mission here yet. We haven't seen anything addressing the Ultramarines mission. Does it need to be addressed? Probably. Maybe not so much as some of the others, but I mean, doesn't change your playstyle any. So we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah.
That is the
As
balance.
you said, Axel, the last time, a man can dream.
That's exactly.
Yeah, a man can dream.
Well, speaking of dreams, Constatin Valdor, what do you do when you're not playing Legions?
Oh, I'm actually going to the gym a lot and playing volleyball.
Fair enough.
And I also enjoy watching series. Like, I really liked Game of Thrones and the series Chernobyl. I don't know if you know that.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. That's good.
Yeah, the miniseries, like 5 episodes, but really, really good. Yeah, and if some good movies come out, I like to go to the movies theater. But lately, not so much. I think the series got to a point where they are made with such an effort and such a love to detail that they often are better than movies with a far higher budget.
I think that especially with the ones that do not have to rely heavily on special effects, they have the same production value as a feature film in some of these. Where you take a look back at at series, maybe 10 years ago even, and you could tell, like, this is a show. This isn't a movie. This is like, just by the way it's filmed, the camera work, whatever.
Cheaper.
But some of these series now, it's like, man, if this was a movie on the screen, or like, it's the same production value, like, you're getting it. And I think that's a testament to better stories being written, as well as being done where that they don't flop. Like, Game of Thrones was such a great hit. And granted, I didn't see the last season.
It was until the last season.
Yeah.
I've read the books that we've got so far, and I think I'll continue to read the books as whenever we get the books, as long as they're not written by Ben Counter.
Counter.
But no, I mean, the books are fantastic, and the series, if the series was done, and I've seen memes like, if this was done in 1994, if it was done 10 years earlier and was not done at a decent production value, I don't think it would have made it to the third season. I think it would have just been another Rome, and even Rome got some play, but I mean, they weren't ready. We weren't ready for that. Game of Thrones just nailed it, and I think in response to that, a lot of studios were like, wow, if we're going to do this, let's go all in, let's do it right, and people will eat it up. And then sometimes you get some misses. I think Wheel of Time is getting a lot of flack for not doing that, for not quite paying attention to their source material. But
they also changed the way they approach series. I mean, if you were watching a show in the 90s or the beginning of the 2000s, you basically could enter at every point of the series.
Correct. It was episodic.
Characters, and the story was at its end at the end of the episode. But since they are telling a continuous storyline, you can pay much more attention to some character developments, which makes them more understandable or even likable. I mean, even a bad guy in the 90s was just bad. That's it. That was his whole character. But now you get some guys, and then you see maybe 1 or 2 episodes from their perspective, and you realize why he's doing the stuff he's doing. And he might even get some sympathy, but at least you may understand in the story context why he does certain things.
And it resonates more when you've got a show like that, too, and you've seen a character grow. Whether that's a protagonist or antagonist, you've seen them grow. And so when they either achieve what they want, you feel a little bit more enthusiastic about it, or they die, or are written off, or like you just like, wow, like it means more. Whereas in a show, like, the old TV shows, you knew somebody was leaving the show because they got a job at another studio or they got a movie career or whatever, so they were just going to be written off. It didn't quite feel enough because they were doing the same episodes. What they did last week didn't change about why they left this week. but that's different with these ones are written because it happens occasionally where they just write somebody off for non-show related reasons, but typically they have a progression for that character. So when they go, or when they leave, or when they achieve what they want, it does feel better. It makes the shows more enjoyable to watch. And yeah, like I think there's been a big shift with shows, even the basic cable or network television shows, where they recognize audiences enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really love The Expanse. And
yeah.
the way people rallied to get that series done at least a few more seasons was awesome. And I love the character, the development of the characters. And to go back to Game of Thrones, I hated Jaime Lannister in the first season.
Right.
But over time, I really liked him. And spoiler alert, he got a lot more likable since he lost his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And stop being in close contact with his sister.
And to be fair, I mean, like the books, I won't say they did it better. They just did more of that, where it was really good. Whereas, like, I mean,
the Game of Thrones book,
that was his arc. That was going to be his arc. But when you get that journey with him, like, you really see, like, he's trying. Like, he's realizing he does not like what he is or what he's known for, and this is not like the character that you're introduced to at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, he's struggling with his name. He doesn't like Kingslayer at all.
Right.
No. I mean, it's a pretty cool title. The issue that has negative connotation.
Yeah.
Like being called an Oathbreaker Paladin in D&D. It's a cool title, but it means you're a bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you were called the President Killer nowadays, I think you wouldn't be proud of that title either.
To be fair, I probably would.
Yeah.
If somehow you were just known as the President Killer, but no negative, because he had no downside to his title. He just stabbed a dude. I mean, it's just a cool title.
Yeah, and the President was an asshole, to be fair.
The king.
The king.
I mean, he was chanting the word to burn them all over. It's hard to argue that's a good man.
Yeah.
I agree.
Talking about old shows, though, I ended up, I don't know why, but I go into the phase where I'll just binge a show. I've been watching Columbo. I know Scott probably know what that is. I know.
Excuse me, miss.
One more question.
Now, here's the thing. I don't know. I love it. So I was just finishing
so
one up.
Great. I love the
so
classic. Now, can you tell me again, just one more time? I'm trying to remember here. It's Columbo. You solved the case. You knew it.
Saying this would do this, sir. This is your expertise. I don't know what I'm saying, but would this do this? Yeah. Then here's all the proof I need to show that you murdered 50 people.
It was just like this, like the old TV shows.
I think we just lost the audience.
Yes.
That was born after 1990.
Nobody knows Columbo.
I'm not from before 1990, but I still watch.
There was Matlock was the same thing. You know, the charm of the Southern lawyer. Like, I'm just a small town Southern lawyer, but. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, granted, that's a terrible Andy Griffith impersonation, but all those crime shows, Murder She Wrote. Come on, Jessica Fletcher, who lived in that town? At the end of the show, how many people died in Cabot Cove? My God.
Yeah, it's one of those things that don't make sense. I don't know. I've always liked those old detective shows. They're fun.
I have been watching on and off the old X-Men 90s animated cartoon show on Disney Plus.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, that makes sense. You're not like seeking it. Like, I gotta go finding this shit.
No, it's on Disney Plus. I've got, I mean, when it came out, I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, and man, it was X-Men. You couldn't go wrong with X-Men. And the cartoon was really good. The problem was in that era, the only episodes they had were the Night of the Sentinels. Like, every time I would get to watch an episode, like I had a free Saturday morning, I'm going to watch X-Men, it was the same 2 episodes I'd seen over and over. I had watched the Night of the Sentinels like 20 times, and then occasionally I would catch a different episode, because they only had like so much time to get new episodes out.
Yeah.
So now I get to actually watch the whole show, and it's not bad. And it does a fairly good job of squeezing in all that comic lore into the cartoon format, the episodic format. Like, it tweaks a couple things with some stories, but basically, you could watch it, not have read any of the comics or any Marvel Universe stuff at all, and get a pretty good on-spot, these are stories that happened in the comics for the X-Men. And on top of that, like, sometimes the stakes are pretty high. Sometimes it's a little goofy. But overall, I've enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to wrapping that up. And then I heard that that they're actually going to be bringing that back. Somehow, they're going to do, I think they're calling it X-Men 97. And it is going to be the same team, the same animation style. Pick up exactly where the series left off. Have the same voice actors and everything. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That could go real good.
It could.
I was talking with a friend about the reimagining of older series. Most of those series had their time where they were good. And I don't think that necessarily works always and in each of those time periods. I mean, if you revive like an old comic book series or something like that, I'm not sure that works now because the time where that happened had some surrounding some political movements or whatever, and nowadays it just would feel weirdly off.
It does
I don't think that always works.
Well, it depends on their push, right? Because half of the show, for those who are not familiar with the X-Men, welcome to the Warp Chatter, where we bring in the X-Men. No, for the half of the story of the X-Men is about prejudice. It's about human hatred for the mutants, who are just an evolution in mankind, and then their place in that. Do they defend humanity who hates them? Do they fight against humanity? Do they fight to conquer humanity? And so there's inner conflicts even amongst themselves, but always that theme of prejudice. The Sentinels are, set out to identify, round up, and or terminate mutants, depending on as the government deems necessary. Those themes, depending on how it's written, could come off in a different tone. I mean, in this era, people could read it wrong. It's interesting because it's always been the point of the X-Men, and I think in the comics today they've actually gone in a couple arcs where they've gone the complete opposite with the X-Men, where that's still their point, but now the X-Men are not the ones who are being prejudiced, but are the ones who have the prejudice and who are basically have realize that we've got enough power to literally alter the course of this world. Why aren't we acting as gods? And which is not what the comic that I'm familiar with. It's all a writing slant. It's who's writing the comics, and in 2 years that could be different. But that's where they're at right now. If you were to have the theme as the show is now, like when I watch the first season, especially, it deals with the Friends of Humanity and the Sentinels and the mutant hatred. I can watch it knowing the era that was written in, and how that encapsulated that. And there's some stuff, and there's like, man, this is a Saturday morning cartoon? Wow. Like, you couldn't get this on Saturday morning on today's television. Because I don't think people want their kids listening to that, one way or the other, whether that's a good message or not. But I think the tone resonates, but it would have to be done right, or they would just have to, if they just shy away from that whole concept altogether, I feel like it would be doing a disservice to what that franchise is. Just like if you were to have a Spider-Man series, and Spider-Man isn't viewed as a vigilante by some people, because that's half his shtick. Like, he's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but some people just don't trust the guy. J. Jonah Jameson. Like, there's just some of that. Like, if you were to take that away, and he's just as good old Chucky guy, then you're missing half the point of Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Anyways,
the fact that he's the strongest Marvel character, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Well, are we gonna have this argument? Well,
the minute the cameras turn off, Scott's gonna strangle me to death. But that's fine. As long as I'm alive. Yes. Now.
So, welcome to the last Warp Chatter podcast ever.
welcome to
because of that remark about Spider-Man.
Get a cardboard cutout of a crab. I'm not wrong. Every comic ever. Makes
so at the end of the podcast, you will hear some gurgling and someone dying.
It'll be pretty. Well, there'll be some web slinging. With great power, Axel, comes great responsibility.
Does it?
This with the great podcast
comes my death.
Well,
I'm a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Constantine, I know I've got you down. Well, hopefully, when we get to the Legio Custodes episode, which I think is in a few weeks out. We've got to cover the last of the legions and then get into the non-legion card pools. But I mean, I'm happy to have you back to just talk about Custodes and not about other balance patch stuff. And maybe by that point,
Yeah, sure.
they'll be in a complete spot again. So, but I appreciate you being available and guesting on today's episode.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me join the podcast.
Yeah. Is there anything you would like to plug?
Oh, actually, I'm not a big blogger myself, but I can recommend all the content creators for Horror Series Allegiance. It's a nice card game, and the fact that it's around for 5 years, 4 years.
Oh God, it's been.
I think we're going on 5 in July.
4.
I mean,
it's April.
actually,
April's
it's a
our fifth
lot
year,
for
right?
a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
If you consider that, that's actually a lot. So.
It is
Try
actually.
it out. Listen to those guys. They can help you make your first decks, even if you have only a few cards. Listen to the podcast if we don't diverge too much from the actual theme.
Listen. It's just how it works. Yeah, exactly. We're here for a good time.
That's it.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
we
You never
have
know
a
where
long
the
time.
conversation's going to take you. Sometimes we're talking about GW, escrow. What's the bottom line? Buy, sell, trade. Next thing you know, we're talking
And
about
the next
X-Men.
moment, it's about strangling Axel.
Right. I mean, come on.
Well, that's going to happen behind the scenes. I'm going.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't want to spoil the arc that I'm going.
Yeah,
through.
exactly. This is the whole character arc,
abruptly.
That's exactly right. You can't strangle a crab. That's what we find out,
Yeah.
next episode.
Kind of because they don't have a neck.
I
Leave
can
them out of
imagine
water
the
for a
opening line for the next podcast. And now we come to our new co-host. What happened to the last one? We don't know.
He's
We just lost them.
just larking in the shadows somewhere out there.
Warp currents.
How about you, Axel? You got anything to plug?
I'm going to do the usual. I'm going to plug our boy Dornstash. He's an artist. He does art. I know, shocker. He drew my multiple profile pictures I use everywhere. That's Drew Lee Clark on Instagram. He does commissions. Papa Booey. Also, because he loves to hear it, Erebus. All right.
All right. Well, I am going to plug deck slots as I do because we are going to need them here shortly. I think people are starting to realize that the deck slots are full. When I say people, I mean me. And I would like more for these new warlords that are coming. We are going to get Amit, we're going to get Ran, we're going to get all the warlords for the factions that don't have warlords, and we don't have slots for them. So I hope we get the slots to get for them. But before we get deck slots, we're going to have the February Decklist contest that is still ongoing this month. If you haven't submitted for that, deadlines are February 25th. The faction theme or the theme for the decklist this month is Perils of the Warp. So all you have to do is submit your decklist to me.
Chaos Spawn deck time, boys.
Following some sort of Perils of the Warp theme. First place gets 1,000
I might even
gold.
join that.
Hey, it's worth it. It's the easiest contest to participate in. First place,
I
1,000
think
gold.
I won once. I joined and I won the one where you were theming.
Do you remember what
I
it was?
don't recall, but it was about the book Emperor of Mankind, and I made a deck list about the Custodes troops fighting down in the Webway.
Ah, okay.
I did not know the theme you were asking for. I can't recall.
It worked. That's the important thing.
It did work.
And then the decks don't have to be, top 50 decks. The whole point is they're thematic. So some people will put in cards that you never would see in a deck, but they tell part of the story, and it works out perfectly.
Exactly.
Second place gets 500 gold. Third place gets 300 gold. So we've got that. We've got the Steam stream that's going to be taking place by the time you're listening to this episode. If you're listening to it on Thursday when it debuts, Steam stream is tomorrow night. That's February 18th at 8 p.m. U.S. Central. If you go to the Community Hub on Steam, take a look there. You should be seeing any games from featured players being streamed, and I will be doing that for a couple hours. I'm going to be also giving away 3 promo codes worth 1,000 gold each to players who challenge me and beat me playing X, and I still haven't figured out what X is going to be. I don't want it to be too restrictive, like you win a mission or something like that, because some people don't have mission cards. But I don't want it to be just play anything. I kind of want it to be special. I want to make people play something that they normally don't play. So I've got to figure that out in the next couple of days. But all you have to do is challenge me, play. If you win, boom, 1,000 gold. It's coming your way with a promo code. And then last but not least, Saturday this month, that's February 19th, we're doing Bar Night Legions. And that is going to be taking place, I believe, 7 p.m. on the 19th. The theme for that this month is Green with Jealousy. You need a male warlord and a female warlord of any rarity, and then the rest of your cards in your deck have to be rares. And that's it. You win those, best 2 out of 3, double elimination, and then you get the title of the Meodmeister, which is the most coveted, prestigious ward in all of Horus Heresy Legions. That's all it is. It's just a title. But we have fun doing it. We chat, we drink, we play cards. Even if you're not playing, if you just want to come in, join the chat and hang out, watch some streamed games, we do that too. So that happens once a month, and this month it's the 19th. So that's what I've got going on. All right. Well, again, Constantine, I want to thank you for joining us, being part of the episode. Hopefully,
thank you too.
Hopefully we covered the balance patch fairly well, whether some people agree with our scores or not.
Everyone's allowed to disagree.
That's it.
Everyone's allowed to disagree, but if you go above a 6, I gotta ask. What? Just the word what.
We don't have anything to do with the balance patch, so if you personally think they should have done X, I'd like to hear it. I won't disagree with you, because I think there's a lot that they could have done X with.
And if you're angry at us because we did a Q&A and you think we're at all responsible for this, fight me.
If you're angry at Axel because he has a $5 microphone...
hey now, my mic quality is great. Not really, but it works.
Yeah, I'm just pulling your crab leg. It's okay. All right, well, that is it for me, guys.
Me for my mic quality, and it hurt.
It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
It wasn't you, but someone did get upset at me, and I kind of just shrugged at him.
Yeah. Next week, we are going to be talking about the word bearers. At least that's what our plan is. So I know that's going to be a hot topic for you, Axel. So you can look forward to that. There'll be a lot of possessions.
I'll tell you exactly why I love this Legion and why it's garbage.
It all starts with the letter R and ends with the but we'll go for
it. I'm pretty sure that's a Chaos Warlord.
You would think. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
See ya. Have a good time.
It ends here.
This has been another episode of the Warp Chatter Podcast. Thank you for listening.
I can't help but appreciate your talents.
It was inspiring.
I need some wood.